Hi, Aqua Boomers. It's time for chapter reading. Well, yesterday, Pa took Laura and Mary to the Indian camp, and they learned how to recognize the tracks of animals, and they learned how to recognize the bones of different animals, and then Laura and Mary found beads. First a blue bead, then a red bead, and they were so excited that they spent the whole afternoon collecting beads. They walked home, it was late, and it was getting a little scary because it was getting dark and the prairie seemed large and it was hard for Laura to keep up. When they got home, Pa had to go milk the cow. He gave the beads that they collected, had them in a handkerchief, gave them to Ma, and Ma opened them up, said how beautiful they were, and then Mary said, "Carrie can have mine." "That's my unselfish good girls," said Ma. She poured Mary's beads into Mary's hands and Laura's into Laura's hands. And then she said she would give them a thread to string them on. The beads would make a pretty necklace for Carrie to wear around her neck. And of course, Laura did not want to give her beads to Carrie. Mary and Laura sat side by side on their bed. They strung those pretty beads on the thread that Ma gave them. Each wet her end of the thread in her mouth and twisted it tightly. Then Mary put her end of the thread through the small hole in each of the beads, and Laura put her end through her beads, one by one. They didn't say anything. Perhaps Mary felt sweet and good inside, but Laura didn't. When she looked at Mary, she wanted to slap her. So she dared not look at Mary again. The beads made a beautiful string. Carrie clapped her hands and laughed at it when she saw it. Then Ma tied it around Carrie's little neck, and it glittered there. Laura felt a little better. After all, her beads were not enough beads to make a whole string, and neither were Mary's, but together they made a whole string of beads for Carrie. When Carrie felt the beads on her neck, she grabbed at them. She was too little to know any better than to break the string. So Ma untied it, and she put the beads away until Carrie should be old enough to wear them. And often after that, Laura thought of those pretty beads, and she was still naughty enough to want her beads for herself. And here is the picture of Laura and Mary sitting on the bed, not looking very happy, and stringing the beads for baby Carrie. But it had been a wonderful day. She could always think about that long walk across the prairie and about all they had seen in the Indian camp. Oh my goodness, this next chapter is so exciting. It's one of my favorites, and it's called Fever and Ache. Now, do you know what Ma is doing? And I'm not sure if that's Laura or if it's Mary, but they're picking berries down by the creek. But it's not as much fun as you would think. Here's why. Now the blackberries were ripe, and in the hot afternoons, Laura went with Ma to pick them. It's Laura. The big, black, juicy berries hung thick in briar patches in the creek bottoms. Some were in the shade of trees, and some were in the sun, but the sun was so hot that Laura and Mary stayed in the shade. There were plenty of berries. Deer laid in the shady groves and watched Ma and Laura. Blue jays flew with their sunbonnets and scolded because they were taking the berries. Snakes hurriedly crawled away from them, and in the trees the squirrels woke up and chattered at them. Wherever they went, among the scratchy briars, mosquitoes rose up in buzzing swarms. Mosquitoes were thick on the big ripe berries, sucking the sweet juice, but they liked to bite Laura and Ma as much as they liked to eat blackberries. Laura's fingers and her mouth were purple black with berry juice. Her face and her hands and her bare feet were covered with briar scratches and mosquito bites. And they were spattered with purple stains, too, where she had slapped at the mosquitoes. But every day they brought home pails full of berries, and Ma spread them in the sun to dry. Every day they ate all the blackberries that they wanted, and next winter they would have dried berries to stew. Mary hardly ever went to pick blackberries. She stayed in the house to mind baby Carrie because she was older. In the daytime, there were only one or two mosquitoes in the house. But at night, if the wind wasn't blowing hard, mosquitoes came in thick swarms. On still nights, Pa kept piles of damp grass burning all around the house and the stable. The damp grass made a smudge of smoke to keep the mosquitoes away. But a good many mosquitoes came anyway. Pa could not play his fiddle in the evenings because so many mosquitoes bit him. Mr. Edwards did not come visiting after supper anymore because the mosquitoes were so thick in the bottoms. All night, Pet and Patty and the colt and the calf and the cow were stamping and swishing their tails in the stable. And in the morning, Laura's forehead was speckled with mosquito bites. I know you've had mosquito bites before, and I have, and they itch. This won't last long, Pa said. Fall's not far away, and the first cold wind will settle 'em. Laura did not feel very well. One day, she felt cold, even in the hot sunshine, and she could not get warm by the fire. Ma asked why she and Mary did not go out to play, and Laura said she didn't feel like playing. She was tired and she ached. Ma stopped her work and she asked, "Where do you ache?" Laura didn't exactly know. She said, "I just ache. My legs ache." "I ache too," Mary said. Ma looked at them and she said they looked healthy enough, but she said something must be wrong or they wouldn't be so quiet. She pulled up Laura's skirt and petticoat to see where her legs ached, and suddenly Laura shivered all over. She shivered so hard that her teeth rattled in her mouth. Ma put her hand against Laura's cheek. "You can't be cold," she said. "Your face is hot as fire. She has a fever." Laura felt like crying, but of course she didn't. Only babies cried. "I'm hot now," she said, "and my back aches." Ma called Pa, and he came in. "Charles, do look at the girls. I do believe they are sick." "Well," said Pa, "I don't feel too well myself. First I'm hot, then I'm cold, and I ache all over. Is that the way you feel, girls? Do your very bones ache? Mary and Laura said that was the way they felt. Then Ma and Pa looked a long time at each other, and Ma said, "The place for you girls is in bed." It was so queer to be put to bed in the daytime, and Laura was so hot that everything seemed wavering. Now, this is a new vocabulary word. If something is wavering and you're looking at it, it seems like it's kind of moving around a little bit. When my husband and I lived in the South, I can remember on really hot summer days, if you drove along the highway and you looked at the road, the blacktop, the heat made that look like it was wavering. That means, and if you have a fever that's really high, that could happen. She held onto Ma's neck while Ma was undressing her, and she begged Ma to tell her what was wrong with her. "You'll be all right. Don't worry," Ma said cheerfully. Laura crawled into bed, and Ma tucked her in. It felt good to be in bed. Ma smoothed her forehead with her cool, soft hand and said, "There now, go to sleep." Laura did not exactly go to sleep, but she didn't really wake up again for a long, long time. Strange things seemed to keep happening in a haze. She would see Pa crouching by the fire in the middle of the night, and then suddenly sunshine hurt her eyes and Ma fed her broth from a spoon. Something dwindled slowly, smaller and smaller, till it was tinier than the tiniest thing, and slowly it swelled till it was larger than anything could be. And this is all because she has such a high fever. Two voices jabbered faster and faster. It must be Ma and Pa. And then a slow voice drawled more slowly than Laura could bear. There were no words, just voices. Mary was hot in the bed beside her. Mary threw off the covers, and Laura cried because she was so cold. Then she was burning up, and Pa's hand shook the cup of water. Water spilled down her neck. The tin cup rattled against her teeth until she could hardly drink. Then Ma tucked in the covers, and Ma's hand burned against Laura's cheek. Ma and Pa are getting sick too. She heard Pa say, "Go to bed, Caroline." Ma said, "You're sicker than I am, Charles." Laura opened her eyes and she saw bright sunlight. Mary was sobbing. "I want a drink of water. I want a drink of water. I want a drink of water." Jack went back and forth between the big bed and the little bed. Laura saw Pa lying on the floor by the big bed. Jack pawed at Pa and whined. He took hold of Pa's sleeve with his teeth and he shook it. Pa's head lifted up a little and he said, "I must get up. I must get up, Caroline and the girls." And then his head fell back and he lay still. Jack lifted up his nose and howled. And Laura tried to get up, but she was too tired. Oh, what an adventure. So, the next day, we'll find out what happens. My goodness, they're all sick. Fever and ache. All right. Bye, Aqua Rumors.